Yeah.
So I'm going to send it over to our UFC and MMA senior correspondent, Corey Santiago, to cover this and many more things.
Very well. Like Nick said, since we weren't on last week, we didn't get a chance to discuss what happened at UFC 184. But yes, that took place a couple of weeks ago. And if you blinked, then you definitely missed the main event, because all it lasted was 14 seconds. That's all Ronda Rousey needed to dismantle Kat Zingano. Going into the fight, we talked about how there's nobody right now who can beat Ronda Rousey. She's just so far ahead of all these girls in the UFC that it's not even funny at this point. You know, she's becoming the female Mike Tyson, where you're buying the pay-per-view to see how quickly she can defeat her opponent, which is basically why you bought a Mike Tyson fight back in the day. The game, I think everybody should know the game plan against Ronda is try to avoid the clinch, because she has amazing judo. She went to the Olympics for judo, and she can basically throw you from any position. So getting close to her, not the smartest thing to do. So Kat Zingano decided to start the fight. I'm going to run and charge at Ronda and throw a knee, get off balance so that we fall down together. She actually was on top of Ronda for like a brief second, and then Ronda just very quickly was like, nope, just flipped her right over, got her back. And it kind of had like a high back mount. So then when she was going to transition, she just grabbed Kat's arm that was available and just kind of like pinned it behind her head and was just straight arm barred her, and Kat tapped in 14 seconds, and Ronda Rousey is still the women's bantamweight champion. It's amazing to see. Like I thought that she'd have no problem with Kat Zingano, but I did not think it was going to be that easy. And I think that the end game would have been the same, though. She would have, beat up Kat. She would have kept taking her down at will, and whenever she wanted to end the fight, she'd end the fight. So this chick is ridiculous right now. There's nobody in the UFC that could beat her. Holly Holm, who was in the co-main event, beat Raquel Pennington by split decision, and didn't look that great. If she gets in there with Ronda, I don't think that she's going to beat Ronda either. I think the same thing's going to happen to her. We'll see who's next for Ronda. I don't even know. There's rumors that it could be Jessica Ai next. But Ronda's going to be doing some movie, so she'll be out for a few months, and then I'm guessing she'll be back, late summer, early fall, and that's when we'll see Ronda again inside the octagon. But I mean, this girl is something special. Every time you see her, she's doing something crazy. She's either knocking chicks out with her hands, she's either dropping with knees, and then just getting these crazy submissions out of nowhere. Who knows how much longer she's going to want to fight for. So as long as she's here, it's a joy to watch her fight, because she's becoming a can't miss type of fighter, and the UFC is very lucky that they struck gold with this one. So that was UFC 184. Like I said, if you blinked, you missed the entire main event. But still, it was crazy to see. So
well, I have to. Yeah, I have to say that this is, Ronda really is the Mike Tyson insofar as she's killing these people. And for those of you who say, well, there's not a really, there's not a lot of competition. Well, she's only fighting who she can fight. I mean, if Cyborg doesn't want to come and do what she needs to do, then what are you going to do? If Gina Carano wants to go make another movie, what are you going to do? She can only fight who she can fight. And I just want to throw one quick thing out there. In my opinion, there's talk about her having a fight with a guy. I'm positive that there are male fighters out there she could probably beat, but I do not want to see that, because if Ronda starts getting beat up, it's going to be very uncomfortable. And there's no positive side to this. So I just want to throw that out there as a personal aside.
That will never happen. No athletic commission will sanction that fight.
What do you mean? They had Jeff Jarrett in China, and the athletic commission was okay with that?
Dana White wouldn't do that.
Just a little aside.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, is there fighters she could probably beat? Yeah, I think there is, but if she fights the one where it goes wrong, that, like you said, that'll be a very uncomfortable thing to watch, which is why we will never see it. So before we preview UFC 185, we'll run through some fight announcements and news that has happened over the past week and a half here, not much. But Fight Night May 16th in the Philippines. Gegard Mousasi, who has said he can beat any middleweight fighter in the UFC.
Fuck
That's
him.
right.
Fuck that asshole.
He will be taking on Costa Philippou in that event. Also, Mark Munoz will fight Luke Barnett. UFC 187, May 23rd in Vegas. Uriah Hall will take on Rafael Natal. Fight Night, June 6th in New Orleans. A heavyweight bout between Ben Rothwell and Matt Mitrione. Also, Tim Boetsch will be fighting Dan Henderson at that event as well. And the final bit of news, UFC hype man Burt Watson quit the UFC after an incident that happened during the weigh-ins at UFC 184 in LA. Mark Munoz missed weight, had to, do his weigh-in over again after he lost the weight to make weight. And there was an issue with his transportation back to the hotel, and something happened, and when the UFC approached Burt about it, he felt it was in a disrespectful manner, and he just straight up quit, and that was it. So pretty crazy to hear. I mean, you've seen him every weigh-in. He's always got the towel waving, and he makes sure the fighters are checked in and all that. So it's gonna be interesting to see how the shows run now with him not there, and how the weigh-ins are run with him not there. But he was a pretty cool guy to see. So it's gonna suck not seeing him around for a while here. But hey, he felt he was disrespected and he didn't like it, so he decided to peace out. So gotta respect that in some way. But we move on here, and we move to this Saturday night's pay-per-view live from Dallas, Texas. 2 title fights on tap here, which I think is a very solid card. The first fight will be in the flyweight division, Chris Carriazo versus Henry Cejudo. Cejudo is a guy who I think could be a potential challenger for Demetrius Johnson in the future, a former Olympic wrestler. They had a very good outing his last UFC fight, taking on Carriazo, who has fought for the title. Nick, what happened when Chris Carriazo fought Mighty Mouse for the title? Okay, Nick's not there.
Debacle.
There it is.
I'm here. I was
all right. You didn't
waiting
answer.
to hear.
So, like you said, it was a debacle. Well, I just wanted you to throw it out there. I know how defensive you can get, and you always like to brag about
what defensive. I guess I tell the truth. I put it out there. I only say the truth. When Mousasi faced Jacare, what happened?
It got ugly.
Exactly. A to the Z.
Well, we will see what happens in this fight and see if Cejudo can move his way on up in the flyweight ranks. The next fight will be in the heavyweight division. Number 8, Roy Big Country Nelson takes on number 9, Alistair Overeem. 2 big heavy hitters in this one. I would expect a knockout in this one if I was a betting man. But, 2 guys right on the cusp there of the top 10, 8 and 9 ranked fighters, looking to try and elevate themselves possibly into the top 5 or close enough to get a top 5 fighter with a win here. In the welterweight division, it'll be number 1 and former welterweight champion Johnny Hendricks taking on number 5 Matt Brown. This has the makings to possibly be one of the fight of the nights. Who knows? Maybe it could be even the people's main event for this weekend's show. But I expect great things here as well. Hendricks looking to probably earn himself a title shot with the victory over Matt Brown. There's a big fight for Matt Brown as well. Hasn't really been able to beat one of the top guys in the welterweight division. So if he can go out there, beat Hendricks, in Dallas, the state of Texas, where Johnny is from, then that catapults him to being in the mix as well for a welterweight title shot. So both of these guys have a lot to fight for, and I would expect that we will see great things in this one. The co-main event will be for the Women's Strawweight Championship, the first time the title will be defended, as Carla Esparza, who won the title on last season of The Ultimate Fighter, defends the title against number 1 ranked Joanna Jedrzejczyk. Tough name to say. But it should be an interesting fight as well. Jedrzejczyk has been all up in Carla's grill all week at these events and stare downs, and is very confident that she will walk out as the brand new strawweight champion. We will see what happens though, but I think these two, another one could possibly steal the show with the possible fight of the night. We know that a lot of these girls have that mindset to go out there and try to one up all the guys and put on great fights, and it could be something that could happen here as well. So we will see. And then that brings us to the main event for the UFC Lightweight Championship. Anthony Pettis defending the title against Rafael Dos Anjos in the main event. Showtime, a fun guy to watch. Has been plagued by the injury bug the past couple of years, but he seems to finally be healthy. And when he's in there, man, he can he can do some pretty incredible things. Dos Anjos, he's very quietly kind of pushed his way up the ranks here, getting big win after big win, finally getting himself a title shot and a chance to dethrone the champion. And we will see if he can do it. It's going to be a tough task. Showtime is at the top of his game right now in his prime. So I just don't know if Dos Anjos has enough to do it. So we will see what happens. As for my picks, I will go with Henry Cejudo, Roy Nelson knocking out Overeem. I think Johnny Hendricks squeaks out a decision against Matt Brown. I think Carlos Esparza retains the strawweight championship, and I also think Anthony Pettis will retain the UFC lightweight championship. So I think a pretty good card here. I think it's a very stacked show. Prelims look pretty good as well. Sergio Pettis, the younger brother of Anthony Pettis, is fighting on the prelims. So it should be a good show. So next time we are on, we will have the review of what took place at UFC 185. We will see who leaves as champions and potentially see if there will be any new UFC champions after this weekend.
Fantastic. Well, I guess we should bring up what our friend Frank Miller 187 wanted us to talk about, and that's Jim Cornette and Vince Russo. And it's very weird because both of these guys are so different. Their philosophies on wrestling are so different, and yet they both seem to be pretty horrible people. Jim Cornette just constantly makes these horrible comments, and Vince Russo's track record speaks for itself. So it's sort of like Jim Cornette and Vince Russo. They're both very different. They both have different outlooks on life, and they're both terrible. Very similar to say Adolf Hitler and Corey Santiago. Very similar description here. But I just saw someone had tweeted out there how Jim Cornette had said he wanted to slit Kenny Omega's throat from ear to ear and all this stuff. So, Corey, in your view, what are the biggest flaws with both of these guys? And do you sort of agree with things what I've said in the past, that Cornette just goes too far. He takes things too far. He is just completely lost as far as the wrestling business goes.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest, knocks on Jim Cornette is he's so stuck in the old ways of doing things in wrestling that he doesn't realize that the times have changed. People have evolved. Fans have evolved. Wrestlers have evolved. The same things that you did back in the 80s isn't going to work, nowadays. So the fact that he gets so stuck in his ways and he criticizes anybody who tries something different. Like I remember when he was in Ring of Honor and they were doing this great feud with El Generico and Kevin Steen and everybody was loving it, he was so down on it and he would veto so much stuff they'd want to do, to the point where them, Carino who was involved, Cabana who was involved, they would just get so frustrated that nobody wanted to be around the guy because he would just bring everybody down. And the fact that anyone who tries to have fun in wrestling, he has the mindset that this is real. This is a real sport. You got to have, just straight matches. You can't have any fun with it. You can't do any comedy stuff.
Well, you know what they say? He says, funny, don't draw money.
Yeah, well, I mean, but that's the thing, though. It's part of a show. It doesn't have to be the entire show, but it's part of a show. Guys who can be comedy wrestlers can be a piece of the show. Doesn't mean you have to build the whole show around them, but why is it so bad if somebody wants to go out there and have some fun? Cabana has made a whole career on just having fun, and he's never had to be successful in WWE to do it. So obviously he can draw money because he doesn't have to work a real job, and he's done pretty well for himself. Kenny Omega is in New Japan right now, in one of the biggest companies in Japan, and is doing great for himself. And